We are here today with Dr. Paul Huth, who is the head of the Center for International Development and Conflict Management. Dr. Huth, thanks so much for taking the time today to talk. Can you tell us a bit about yourself and your research interests?
So I'm a professor in the Government and Politics Department. I'm also the director for the Center for International Development and Conflict Management, and I'm also the editor for the Journal of Conflict Resolution. I can say a little bit about my research interests over time here. So I broadly study international and internal conflict behavior. Throughout my career, I've studied, for example, the causes of territorial disputes between states, and what leads some territorial disputes to escalate to war, and under what conditions some territorial disputes are settled peacefully through negotiations and agreements. I've also worked on a stream of research related to the civilian consequences of war. So I've been interested in questions about when our civilian populations unfortunately targeted with violence in wars, be they civil or interstate wars. I'm also interested in when civil conflicts sometimes lead to conditions of famine for civilian populations. And I've also done research on what are the longer-term public health consequences of armed conflict for civilian populations and societies. I also have an interest in studying international law, and I have studied the role of international law, particularly with a focus on the resolution of territorial disputes that I mentioned earlier. So I've studied when do states settle disputes, and and how does international law contribute to the peaceful settlement of territorial disputes. And then another area of research that's more recent and ongoing for me is the study of rebel groups involved in civil wars and civil conflicts, and research on sort of the military foundations of their power and what kinds of strategies they adopt in the insurgencies that they engage in against governments. And then more broadly, what are the outcomes of civil wars, the political military outcomes of civil wars, with a focus on how differences in rebel power and insurgency strategies influence those outcomes.
Can you tell us a bit about the center and the type of work you do there?
Sure. The center was developed in the early 1980s. Ed Azar was the founder who developed the center. Ed was a faculty member in the Government and Politics Department. And the center was created with sort of a dual mission. One was to promote and support cutting-edge research on the causes of conflict and its impact on development broadly understood. And then a second important mission was to, in some ways, be able to translate or apply insights from academic research to policy and policy analysis. So I think those two interrelated missions have been at the core of CIDCM's inception, in the early 1980s.
Who else is affiliated with the CIDCM?
The center is housed within the Government and Politics Department, and it currently has a number of tenure-track faculty, about 10 members who specialize in international relations or comparative politics. And then there also are a couple of professional track faculty who are also affiliated with the center. So in total, there are 12 researchers affiliated with CIDCM at this time.
What current research projects are there with the center?
Very diverse, very diverse. So there's everything from, I'll give you sort of a broad overview, and then maybe go into some detail on a few more examples of it. But broadly speaking, the center covers areas such as China's foreign and security policies. We have other researchers studying social media and state repression in the Middle East. We have other colleagues studying political economy of the World Trade Organization and the effectiveness of its dispute resolution bodies. We have researchers studying the use of air power in U.S. foreign policy, a range of topics. The projects many of them are funded. So another interesting feature of CIDCM is that it is really the focal point within GVPT for externally funded research projects. And so we currently have projects that are funded, for example, by National Science Foundation, by Minerva, which is affiliated with Department of Defense. We have projects also funded by U.S. State Department and USAID. And that's a long-standing characteristic of the center, that projects are funded by external sources. And that's one of the features that's also distinctive, in that these funded research projects typically bring in quite a few graduate students who become involved in the projects as research assistants and end up being involved in many co-authoring opportunities.
Can you go into detail about any of these projects, particularly some that include graduate students?
Yes. So one example would be that Jennifer Hayden has a project studying the social and sort of political responses of local populations to various types of energy programs that are being pursued in developing countries. And she's examining countries in both Africa and in Asia. She's using multi-methods. There's a combination of surveys, experiments, interview work being done, focused case studies. Graduate students are involved in the project in various ways. It's funded by NSF. And it's a really nice example of a project that brings in graduate students to support her research. There's another project underway by John McCauley, which is funded by the State Department, USAID. That has a number of graduate students involved as research assistants. That examines the impact of terrorism on local communities across several countries in Africa, looking at the social, economic, and political consequences of terrorism for the development of those local communities. And again, it's a multi-method project, combining quantitative data analysis, data collection, along with some very interesting survey experiments being done in the field, as well as sort of interview work and case studies.
Those projects both sound really interesting. So what sort of research assistant work do graduate students usually do when they're on these projects? Just to give our prospective students a bit of an idea about it.
The RA work can be quite varied. For example, would not be unusual for graduate students to be involved in collecting data that will be part of a larger data set that then will be quantitatively, statistically analyzed. So data collection is a common role for RAs to play. But in addition, there are many other roles. So for example, some students might be involved in the fielding and the execution of survey experiments in the field. So they get a lot of hands-on experience in the design, execution, and implementation of a survey experiment that's done in the field. John McCauley, for example, works very closely with graduate students on field experiments. In other cases, RAs might end up doing field work in support of a project. So they may travel to a foreign country and participate in carrying out data collection in that country, might also participate in conducting of interviews that are important to the project. So that's typical, I think, sort of a range of RA work. And then, as I mentioned just a moment ago, many of these opportunities that start out as RA work to support a project expand or develop into an opportunity for the graduate students to become co-authors on papers that come out of the research project. So I think as students sort of demonstrate their skills and commitment to the project and impress the professor through their RA work, they oftentimes will be invited to become involved as a co-author, as I said, on one of the papers that comes out of the project.
How can students learn more about the center and the different projects that you're working on there?
Various ways. I mean, one common way in today's world is to go online, go to the website, and to look at the profile for each of the affiliated faculty. And there they'll have a description of some of their current research, and you can learn about it there. Another way is to, once they're on campus and have the opportunity, they should go talk to some of these faculty and sort of learn more in person about their research projects. Another way to, I think, learn more about the center is to become involved in some of the talks and meetings that are held at the center. So regularly, CIDCM in collaboration with GVBT holds a workshop on sort of research in progress. And that brings together faculty and graduate students who are interested in studying conflict and development and many other interesting issues. And that's a great way, I think, to meet fellow graduate students, to get to know the faculty a little bit better, and to learn about what kind of research is ongoing. Because many of the talks are by faculty and or graduate students about research in progress. And that's a great way to learn what's going on, what's being pursued, and then through those contacts to start to talk to these graduate students who are involved in projects already, talk to the faculty who are engaged in ongoing projects. So that's another great way, I think, to learn more about what's going on at the center and the activities that their faculty and students are involved in.
You brought up earlier that you're also an editor for a journal. Can you talk a bit about what it's like doing that?
I've been the editor for the Journal of Conflict Resolution since about 2009. And JCR is an important journal in the field for the study of conflict. It's widely read. It's a lot of work. It keeps me very busy. I think one aspect of it that is very relevant for graduate students is that through collaboration with GVPT, there is always a managing editor who is a graduate student, a PhD student. And they work on a day-to-day basis with me on sort of the daily operations of the journal. They handle the sort of recording and maintaining the inflow of manuscripts. And then I work with assigning reviewers to manuscripts. They also handle and process the flow of decisions on manuscripts that have come in, that come to me, and then I have to look at them, the reviews that come in, and I make decisions, and they send out those decisions. So in my experience, and I've had a number of graduate students over the years, they usually serve for 2 to 3 years as a managing editor. And I think all of the students have told me that they found it to be really an excellent experience in terms of them learning just in a much more hands-on way, very direct way, what the research and publication process is like. So it's a great experience for those students, and they also get, I think, to share it with their fellow graduate students. I think they talk about, what they do as the managing editor. And I also, in my graduate seminars, try to weave into my discussion sort of some of my activities and roles in JCR and how that should how students should be thinking about research. And when I think about, and I'm grading papers that they're writing, I can bring to that sort of my experience as an editor for a journal.
What advice do you have for students who are interested in applying to University of Maryland?
Do a lot of research about the faculty and sort of learn as much as you can about what their projects are, what their interests are, and then to don't hesitate to reach out and contact them and talk to them about what their research interests are and what their plans are. I would also reach out to existing or current graduate students because I think the professional sort of relationships that students develop among themselves is one of the most important and lasting, I think, aspects of earning your PhD. And so I think getting to know your fellow graduate students, understanding from their perspective what it's like to be a student in the department is very valuable for a prospective student. And it's also just important, I think, to get into the mindset for graduate school that you have to, I think, be active, be a self-starter. You have to take the initiative, seek out opportunities both with faculty and with other graduate students. And I think if you do that, you will enjoy graduate school much more. You will learn a lot more, and you'll develop professional relationships that last well beyond your years in the PhD program.
Fun closing question: what's your favorite part about UMD?
That's a great question. I guess one aspect that's been really nice is that I live very close to the university, so I'm able to bring my sons onto campus and do a lot of activities with them. So we go to here and there, we go to talks or events on campus that my sons are interested in. We go to things like Maryland Day regularly, always in the spring, which is a lot of fun. I go to the gym with them quite a bit in the evening. So I think the university, is a big, busy, vibrant place. There's a lot of activities going on outside of your own department. And so if you can just sort of try and keep up with what's going on and take advantage of some of those opportunities, it's a lot of fun. And in my case, I can sort of bring my sons along to enjoy some of those activities together.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing all of that and for your time today. I really appreciate it.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.